Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pros podcast. I'm your host, Tally Shamus, and today I'm here with agent Vicky Weber to talk about how to market yourself as a writer, self-publishing with an agent, and the question on everyone's minds, what are agents really looking for? Vicky Weber is a literary agent, best-selling children's book author, and publishing industry expert with years of experience helping authors navigate both traditional and self-publishing. As the founder of At Home Author, she has guided countless writers through the process of crafting, publishing, and marketing successful books. With a background in education, Vicky is passionate about breaking down complex industry concepts into actionable steps. Whether securing book deals for her clients or sharing insights on the ever-evolving publishing market, she is dedicated to helping authors turn their creative dreams into reality. Vicky, thank you so much for joining today. I'm really looking forward to this discussion.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to have it.
So I'd like to start by asking you just broadly about your writing journey and what that's looked like.
So, I actually entered the publishing industry on the author side, and I started in self-publishing. So, my first 3 books were complete flops because I didn't know what I was doing, and I listened broadly to all the advice online that was like, "Just keep creating, keep putting books out," and there was no strategy behind what I was doing. I don't have regrets because those are stories that I wanted to tell and were really important to me, and I learned a lot, but they definitely, you know, put fuel on the fire to actually figure out how to make this feasible. I was doing that while I was teaching full time. I was an elementary school teacher for 6 years. And then during COVID, I got pregnant with my daughter, who's my firstborn. And I basically came to the conclusion that I couldn't be the mom that I wanted to be if I stayed. So I was already self-publishing at that point, and I, took the insanely scary move that I was not ready for and didn't return from my maternity leave, dove into self-publishing full time. And I actually made like 3 times more as a self-published author than I did as a teacher. But it was because I spent so much time learning how to market, how to position myself. Like I was taking business classes at like my local community college. My husband actually went to get his MBA, so I was constantly picking his brain and like trying to figure out how to make things work, and it went well, but it was exhausting and again in a good way. And so I had so many people asking for advice and how do I do this too, that I started like teaching classes and webinars and things like that. And that was actually what ended up connecting me with the owner of a small literary agency. And so that was how I stumbled into becoming an agent. That was never my intention or ambition, but I love it because it allows me to be a part of bringing books into the world that I'm not the best person to write. And I've learned over the years that marketing is really something I'm good at and something I enjoy and that I'm passionate about. And I love being able to, be part of that journey for other writers. So now I'm agented myself. Amy Jafrida over at Belcastro is my literary agent. So I still write. And still do all the things on that side. And then I have about 30 clients as a literary agent with 2 toddlers at home.
I relate so much. I also have a COVID baby, so getting used to this new life at a very strange point in time. But I definitely want to ask you more about your work as an agent. But first, I would love to chat about the transition from self-publishing to traditional, because I saw that Kathy Hedrick Armstrong, who you share a Substack with, actually shared a post about that recently, as well as her client, Kelly Beck. And I find that super fascinating because we're seeing so many successful self-published writers moving into the traditional realm. So can you touch a little bit about your perspective on that as an agent?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, it's always evolving. So anything that I say now could be completely different in like a week, a month, a year. But I think the reason that we're seeing a convergence is because in a saturated market for authors to make a living just getting traditional print rights sold isn't enough anymore. Advances aren't high enough, book sales aren't high enough across the board. And so at least what I've seen on my end, I work with a lot of authors who choose to self-publish while being agented by me. And that allows them to publish and bring into the world the projects that maybe a publisher didn't know what to do with. They don't just have to die in a drawer. And then it allows me and the arms of my literary agency to leverage the sub rights of those projects. So maybe we sell the audio rights independently, or the foreign rights, or the TV and film rights, the merchandising rights, whatever it may be. So even though we're not selling the traditional print rights on it, there are so many other things that we can do, or we can leverage that into future traditional print deals. And I think the one thing is that successful self-publishing has always been able to lead to traditional publishing. The Velveteen Rabbit was self-published, 50 Shades of Grey was self-published, Aragon was self-published, but you always needed that level of success to get to that point. And we're seeing a lot less of those numbers needed. But the question always comes down to, and I'm a huge advocate for this all over the internet. There is not one route that is better than the other. They're both different. They both have pros and cons. It's about what's best for you and that book. Because some people I talk to are like, self publishing, I get to be a part of the whole process. And other people are like, I get to be a part of the whole process. The only person that can decide whether or not that is a good thing is you. And so I would encourage authors that if you're going to pick self-publishing or you're going to pick traditional publishing, do it because it's what you want to do, not because it's what you think that you should do. It's a hard industry no matter what angle you're approaching it from. And the reason why I went self-pub first was because at the time what I was publishing didn't exist. And I was getting no's because the industry didn't know what to do with it. Essentially, what I was creating was books for the educational market, children's picture books that were interactive, like Don't Push the Button, but with music education concepts. One of my books, Rhythm Rescue, like the kids have to clap the right rhythm to activate the superhero's powers.
That is so
Or
cool.
Tiger Tempo, they have to run a race alongside the tiger, to learn different speed terminologies. There's even a little speedometer in the illustrations. The line is, "Help the tiger win the race, tap the beat to keep his pace." And the kids have to keep the beat so he doesn't trip and fall. So things like that, the traditional market had no idea what to do with. But I've sold, goodness, I probably sell 10,000 copies a year, if not more. And that's where my full-time income actually comes from. It's what allows me to be an agent. So I think for me, what it came down to with which route to choose was which books do I want to be a part of? And for the music stuff, that was very important to me. I've got a degree in music education. I wanted to make sure the music notes weren't backwards. So many books with backwards music notes drives me crazy. So I wanted to have my hand in all of those pots, but something that's a little bit more commercial and not for the educational market. Those are things that I don't feel the need to, um, for lack of a better word, micromanage. So yeah, I still choose to do those things simultaneously. And especially now because with two toddlers, I don't have as much time to commit to self-publishing the way that I did before.
Yeah. And traditional often doesn't see the value in certain concepts. So soon as you started describing your books, I'm thinking, I need these. My kids would love these. So it's wild to me that they didn't know what to do with that. And I think we're actually seeing that through big traditional names going different routes. So, Brandon Sanderson self-publishing. Ali Hazelwood, didn't she just crowdfund
I
an
think so.
anthology? Yeah, so it's really interesting to see. But what are some tips that you would give to authors looking to self-publish?
I think the biggest one would probably be give yourself time, because it's very easy to get excited and want to see your book in the world, but time is your friend. Distance from your manuscript will help you make it the best it can be. And it takes time to actually create and implement a marketing plan. So, trying to squish marketing into 2 weeks, you're not going to see the same results as if you give yourself months or a year. So, it's easy to want to just put something out, but make sure you have a strategy behind it so that you see a return on both your time and your financial investment.
Right. And I'm sure that that marketing strategy would look very different for a kid's picture book versus an adult romantasy. So, know your
Exactly.
market, I'm sure.
I'm actually starting back over right now because I'm starting to write adult horror, which means I have to write under a pen name because I can't converge those two audiences. So I'm starting from scratch again with new website, new audience, new all the things. But the skills that I've built up are still transferable. It's just a different pool of people that I'm speaking to, and so I have to meet them where they're at and figure out, how do I reach these people? What do they want? What would make them put in their email to join my email list? What are the things that would excite them and get them engaged on social media, etc.
Yeah, I absolutely adore horror. My horror manuscript is what got me my agent. So I definitely have a soft spot and I'm excited to see what you come out with. What is your pen name?
Ria Vargas.
Ooh, amazing. Okay, I'm going to be following that for sure. So, I guess let's get into what most of our listeners are probably eager to hear about, and that is the agent side. How you read queries, how you triage them, what makes for a no, what makes for a yes. So, let's start with how many queries would you say you get?
My current average is 600 to 700 per month.
So, what do you do with all of those queries? How do you even begin to triage them?
So I have to have basically two modes when I'm reading queries. Mode one, because I look at queries every single day, every day. And so mode one is usually a half an hour to an hour where I just read all of the queries as they come in and I'm looking for, is this an automatic no? What I mean by that is it a genre I don't represent? Or is it something I'm closed to right now? Is it a bot? Because sometimes that happens. Not often, but every once in a while you'll get a bot. Is it like one time I got a query that was 100% in French? The query letter was in French, the manuscript was in French. I don't speak French. I know nothing about French. So that's an automatic no. If I'm even on the fence or hesitate a little bit, I stop and I don't continue reading. I save it for later. And so I go through and I probably get rid of about 15 a day just doing that, because a lot of people will send you things that you're not open to. I get a ton of literary fiction, like straight up literary fiction. I don't do literary fiction at all. I get a lot of novellas. I don't work with novellas. I don't know any editors that buy them, so I'm not the person to work on them. Or space operas. I don't read space operas, so I don't have the editorial eye for space operas. So, like those things. And then once or twice a week, I sit down for a longer chunk and I look through, like, I read more in depth and I figure out, okay, is the quality there? And if the quality is there, am I the best person to take this to the next level? Do I know, or at least have some idea of who might buy this? Is this a project I want to fight for? All of those things. And so those thoughts are what determine whether or not I request a full or a partial. I've had some people ask, does requesting a partial mean you're more hesitant than just requesting a full? And my thought is, at least for me, no. It just comes down to how much time I have, because I get through partials so much quicker than fulls. So sometimes I'll be like, if I request a full, I'm going to sit on this for longer than I should. So I'm going to request a partial and then, I'll get through that quickly and then I can read more if I want. So that's a little bit more mood based for me. But if I like it and I think that there's potential there and I could be a good fit for it, I'm going to request more pages and then rinse and repeat. I do respond to every single query I receive, which is exhausting. But as somebody who's been in the query trenches twice as a writer, that's really important to me.
Yeah, it is. It really is in this industry, especially in the state that it is right now, where you have thousands of writers, thousands of agents, more agents than editors. Even a rejection is welcome, I think, by writers. So, you've talked a little bit about your immediate no's. Now, what aspects of a manuscript will give you pause and maybe lead to a rejection later on down the road? Is it writing skills? Is it plot related, character related?
It varies, but my analogy for it is as an agent, I'm like an interior designer, like an interior designer slash real estate agent, right? So I'm going to come into the property and be like, ooh, let's, you know, improve the flow this way and let's throw on that paint color and let's move this over here. The most we're doing is blowing out a wall. And we're going to avoid that if we possibly can because that's a mess. But I can make the space um appealing to buyers and stage it right and things like that. I can't do anything if you have built your house with the kitchen on the roof, or if you don't have a roof, or if you're like, yeah, this is a single family home and it's actually a studio apartment. So it has to fit the needs for what you're going for. That doesn't mean you can't stylistically, you know, do what you want with it because you can, but there's a difference between, this is a unique floor plan for a single family home versus no, this is a studio apartment.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, that's kind of how I like to look at it is what is the level of work needed here? And sometimes this is the hardest thing to hear. Sometimes I will read something and I know something is off and I don't know what it is. And if I don't know what it is, I don't know how to, I don't want to just put something out as is and then burn through opportunities if you could have an agent who does have that vision, and the project do better because of it. I never want to be the reason that an author doesn't succeed or be the anchor to your career.
Right, right. So, are there any elements of the story that you think are more important in terms of getting to that yes? So, let's say the story's really great, you're captivated by the hook, but the pacing is off. The beginning drags on too long. Is that something that would turn you off, or could you work through that?
Okay, so here's one thing to know and try to read between the lines with agents because I firmly believe that that's the reason why I spent years trying to get an agent the first time and hours the second time around. I had my first offer of representation the second time around within 48 hours of querying.
My goodness.
And what changed was my strategy.
Yeah.
Also my writing skills improved a bit. Um but I've had this conversation with my colleagues over here at CMA. I told them, I'm like, for me, the plot has to be there. I mean, the characters can't be, a piece of paper. Like there needs to be something there. But the plot is more important to me because I can pull a character out of an author. I
Mm,
can sit there with them and say, why are they doing this? If you were in insert scenario, what would your reactions be and why? Why do they turn out this way personality wise and not this way? I can pull that out. Most of my colleagues are the opposite. They're like, I can pull a plot out of an author like that, but I can't pull a character out of them. And that's just a skill difference. And so for me, I'm looking for, does the plot make sense? Does the plot progression overall work? Um, and then are there existing threads that we can tug on and tighten? But a lot of times what I'll see is a really cool premise, but the plot doesn't go anywhere, or there will be logistical things that don't make sense, like that feel like they were just put there to move the story forward rather than it being an organic choice that a character would make. Sometimes it's things like a character having no agency, like the whole book happens to them. and that's it. There's no balance there. So for me, it's the balancing act. When someone says show, don't tell, it doesn't mean never tell. It means the balance needs to be skewed towards showing. If someone says don't use adverbs, they don't mean don't ever use adverbs. They mean use them sparingly and on purpose, especially in dialogue, because that's where it's going to feel the most natural. So it is all about the balance. And the majority of the time when I say pacing is the issue, it's not because the pacing is this much of an issue. It's because the pacing is making it a chore for me to read. And so that extreme is what can lead to a no. The hard part is that's so subjective. I know it's already a lot. Querying is already a lot, but I would encourage you to get familiar with how to read between the lines because it helps a lot. Just knowing this is an agent who wants something really, really commercial. Don't send them something quiet because you're going to get a no, not because of the quality, but because it's not a fit.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it is such a subjective industry. That's the thing. And we can ask till we're blue in the face what makes for a yes, but at the end of the day, when you read something that captivates you, that's just it. And somebody else might read it and think, nope, not for me. And that's all there is to it. Well, that's super interesting. I would love to delve into life as an agent and community a little bit. I love that you have this Substack with Kathy. I think that's so wonderful. How did the two of you meet?
We actually started at the same small literary agency, and then I moved over to CMA around the same time that she moved over to Marshall Lyon. So she's a very close friend. I jokingly call her mom. Uh, we give each other crap all the time, see each other at conferences and things like that. But at this point, I'm a firm believer that publishing is a team sport. There's even been times on editor calls where I've been like, "Ooh, I don't have that, but you know who does? This other agent at this agency." That's not typical or normal, but it's something that those agents have reciprocated for me. We're sharing information, we're sharing notes, because someone else's success is not taking from yours. So one of my favorite offer calls was actually involving Kathy. I think we wrote a Substack on this. But I was on the phone with Kathy and she says, "Ugh, I have to jump on a call with this author and I have to tell her no and I'm so upset because I really like it, but I just don't know what to do with it. So I know that like her being with me is not going to be good for her in the long run." And she said something about the plot. She said, "And it's so gorgeous because it's da 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 da." And I said, "Wait, is that Laura's?" She goes, "Yes. How do you know what manuscript I'm talking about?" I had passed on her manuscript, I think like 4 weeks prior, but she had a deadline because she had an offer from an editor. And at the time, I could not make her deadline. I was just drowning. There was absolutely no way. So I said, "I'm going to step aside at this time, whatever it is." Well, 4 weeks later, I assumed she'd found an agent and moved on. Apparently she hadn't. And her deal was still on the table. She got passes from everybody she had queried. And so I was like, I had read her whole manuscript. I loved it. And the only reason I passed was because I couldn't meet her deadline. And that was no longer a concern. So I said, "Can I join your call?" And she was like, "Wait, what?" Like, that was the one that got away. Like, I cried about passing on that. Like, I cried. So I jumped on the call with Kathy, and Kathy did this lovely little, "Hey, Laura, so I have good news and bad news. The bad news is this is a pass from me. The good news is, do you remember Vicky?" And I hijacked her call to offer on that author. And I think she now has, oh goodness, she signed with me maybe December or January. And she has one, two, three, four, five or six books under contract already. Like, she is
Wow.
amazing. She's incredible. I love working with her. And so that just goes to show that if you keep putting yourself out there, you never know when things are going to happen. The only way to guarantee that you never get to where you want to be is by stopping.
Wow, that is so awesome. Now, you talked about going to conferences and whatnot. What are some ways that you would recommend for authors or agents to build community and make those connections that are so important?
Yeah, I think conferences are a good one. Although the in-person ones can get pricey. So I would, if cost is a concern, look into scholarships because a lot of local organizations or local writing groups will have scholarships. Um, I love virtual conferences, but they're not as great for the community building aspect. And so, even though they're more cost effective, you're not likely to meet critique partners or engage with people in quite the same way. But it does open opportunity for those who are limited in transportation, limited funds, etc. I would always encourage writers to look into things at their local library because they often run classes, critique groups. And if they don't have one, a lot of times they're willing for you to start one and then they'll advertise it to the community email list or, on their website, things like that. Also, just engaging online and social media. If you really approach things uh, you know, genuine with genuine kindness and a genuine desire to be helpful, you will find other people who will do the same. You will also find people that just want to take, unfortunately. So you have to be cognizant of, are they making an effort back? And is that effort constructive? This is a hard enough career path slash hobby, depending on your goals already. It's not worth your time to keep people in your circle who are going to make you doubt yourself. You'll have plenty of that. You'll have more than you need of that.
Oh,
So
yeah.
find the people that will celebrate the successes with you. If they are going to give you advice, they're not going to tear you down to do it. They're going to say, "What if you tried?" Or, "Ooh, imagine if." And you're not always going to agree with that feedback, but that's okay. It's going to get your gears turning and you're going to learn and grow and then you can give that back. Um
Mm,
yeah, keep putting yourself out there.
yeah. So, knowing all that you know now about the industry from the self publishing side, from the trad side, from the agenting side, what is one single piece of advice that you think anyone should know about publishing?
Write more than one book. Seriously. So many people write their first book and they believe in it so much and they should, but that's the book that they want to get an agent with or that's the book that they want a publishing deal with. Well, that's not always how it works. It's actually pretty rare that the first book you query is the one that gets you an agent, and it's even more rare that that's the same book that's the first to sell. That doesn't mean it won't sell, though. Not every book is the best one to debut with. Not every book is the best one to get you an agent. So when I went back into the query trenches this past March, what I did was I pulled up my entire portfolio, everything I had, and some of it was garbage, and I set those aside and was like, "I'll worry about that later." Uh, I pulled up my best things, and I said, "Okay, what do I have? This is a super literary picture book about my cultural heritage, okay? This is a wacky, fun, rhyming book that's really commercial, picture book, and this is an adult horror." And this is, and I went through and I was like, what do I have here? And then I wrote packages, query packages for each of them. And then when I went to go look at my agent list for who I wanted to send things, instead of just sending things one at a time, I said, okay, this person, which of these projects that I have would be the best to get my foot in the door with this person? Which of these would get my foot in the door? Because I want them to represent me as, as a whole. Um, but that doesn't mean that every project I have is going to be the one that stands out from a giant pile of other queries. And so I tried to use what I knew about them, what their wish list said. If they said they want the next Eyes That Kiss in the Corners, well, that is very literary. So I picked my literary picture book. If they said, I'm really hungry for more giftable giftable picture books. I sent the commercial one because commercial and giftable are interchangeable terms. And so I really think that that's why one of many reasons why things moved for me as quickly as they did. Because all three offers were on different projects. And so yeah, you open more doors when you write more. You learn more when you write more, and you have more opportunities to put yourself out there the more you write. If you're stuck with one book and an agent passes on that project and you don't have anything else to send them, that no is just a no. But if you have other things, suddenly the possibilities are wide open. And when you get an agent, now you have a catalog basically of projects that you can sit and look at and say, great, where do we want to start from a strategic standpoint?
Yeah.
Write a lot. You'll learn a lot.
Definitely. I think that is fantastic advice. I am astonished by what you've managed to accomplish in 5 years. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom and what you've learned. I know our listeners will appreciate it as well.
The only thing I ask, this is for anybody listening, find a way to pay it forward. When you learn something, when you grow, when you have any type of success, and it doesn't have to be monetary, but find a way to pay it forward, because again, it's a team sport and the industry is hard enough as is. The more you know, the easier it will get, whether that's because of the support you'll gain or just because of the encouragement. So find a way to share the wealth, share the knowledge.
It's wonderful. Thank you so much, Vicky.
Of course.
And thank you all so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and remember to tune in next Tuesday for a new episode of the Pros podcast.